Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We will begin momentarily. We have about 1 more minute until 5:30, but I do want to allow other participants just a little bit of a grace period to log in and join us on this Zoom meeting. So thank you for your patience, and thank you again for being here.
Buenas tardes a todos, gracias por acompañarnos. Nos queda un minuto más antes de empezar la reunión. Les pedimos solamente su paciencia en cuanto esperamos que lleguen algunos más de los asistentes para esta noche. Gracias por su asistencia y por su paciencia.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I see folks continuing to enter into the Zoom room. We will start momentarily. I just want to give other participants enough time to join us.
Bien, vemos que aún van llegando algunos asistentes para nuestra videoconferencia de Zoom. Les pedimos un momento más para que lleguen los que van a estar aquí esta noche y luego comenzaremos. Gracias.
Okay, it is 5:32 p.m. and we will officially begin tonight's meeting. My name is Jamie Fong and I am with the California Department of Conservation. And on behalf of the California Department of Conservation and the California Air Resources Board, I want to genuinely thank you for joining us this evening, for taking the time to hear from us and to engage with us. We are going to be focusing on the topic of health protection zones on Senate Bill 1137 Pre Rulemaking. Next slide, please. I want to announce that Spanish interpretation services are going to be available to you this evening. First, I am going to share a few instructions on how to change your interpretation settings to the language that you prefer. Then I will hand it over to our interpreter, Mark, to provide instructions as well. So to change your language settings, please select the interpretation button. This button has a global icon on it and is located at the bottom right hand of your Zoom screen. When you click on the global icon, you will change it to the language that you prefer or the one that you're most comfortable with. Tonight, you will have Spanish and English as your options. To only hear the interpreted language, click Mute Original Audio. I will now invite our interpreter, Mark, to share these instructions in Spanish.
Thank you, Jamie. Muy buenas tardes a todos que nos acompañen en español esta noche. Queremos dejarles saber que tenemos interpretación disponible al vivo para hoy. Quiera buscar en la parte inferior de su pantalla. En breve aparecerá un icono de un globo terráqueo que dice Interpretation, interpretación. Puede seleccionarlo y de ahí seleccionar su idioma Spanish o español y podrá escuchar todo el programa en su idioma. Y si desea escuchar solamente la voz del intérprete, puede seleccionar la opción que dice Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. Si se encuentra en una tableta o un dispositivo móvil, puede buscar los 3 puntos que dicen More o más y puede encontrar esa misma opción de interpretación para escucharlo en su idioma. Muchísimas gracias y aquí para servirle. Thank you, Jamie. Back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Okay, I will now review the agenda so we have a sense of what's in store for this evening. We are in the middle of our welcome, of course, and then very shortly here, we will be hearing from Jennifer Lucchesi, the Department of Conservation Director, as well as Courtney Smith, the California Air Resources Board Principal Deputy Executive Officer. And then we're going to transition to hearing an overview and a context setting for this evening provided by Doug Ito, which is the Geologic Energy Management Division Oil and Gas Supervisor. You'll also hear it referred to as CalGEM this evening. And then you will be also hearing from two of my colleagues from CalGEM to provide an overview of key issues for pre-rulemaking review. We'll also hear from a California Air Resources Board colleague as well. And then lastly, we will end the evening with public comment, question, and answer. We have an extensive list of panelists of different knowledge and expertise available to you this evening for your comments, questions, and input, specifically related to health protection zones, Senate Bill 1137, pre-rulemaking. Next slide, please. I'm happy to introduce Department Director Jennifer Lucchesi. Jennifer, when you're ready, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jennifer Lucchesi. I'm the new director for the Department of Conservation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are gathered to discuss the implementation of Senate Bill 1137 that establishes new safety measures to protect public health by creating buffer zones between oil and gas operations and community spaces. I know most of you are aware of this important law and will learn more about it shortly from our state oil and gas supervisor, Doug Ito. I am just 10 weeks into my time at the Department of Conservation, but my priority for this year is connection and reconnection with each other, with communities we serve, and the lands and resources we help to steward. Towards that end, I really appreciate that you took time out of your evening to join us, because public participating in the rulemaking process is critical to successful implementation of this law. Tonight is not just an opportunity for us to share, it's also an invitation for you to share with us. It is our opportunity to hear from you all. I'm delighted that the California Air Resources Board, as well as the State Water Resources Control Board, are here tonight with us as well. Again, thank you so much for your time. And now I'll turn it back over to Jamie to introduce Courtney. Thank you.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Jennifer. Really appreciate it. And I'm happy to introduce Courtney Smith.
Thanks, Jamie. Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Courtney Smith. I'm the Principal Deputy Executive Officer with the California Air Resources Board, also referred to as CARB. But before this role, I actually had the pleasure of working at CalGEM and got to work very closely with CARB and the State Water Resources Control Board on implementing SB 1137. So I'm really excited to be here tonight and really glad to still be a part of implementing this really important legislation. So I'd like to just take the opportunity to welcome you to this workshop and also say a little bit about CARB and explain why we're here tonight. So CARB is the lead agency for California's climate change programs, and we oversee air pollution control efforts in the state to attain and maintain health-based air quality standards. We're here tonight in partnership with CalGEM and the Water Board to discuss our responsibilities under SB 1137 and how we'll be moving forward. Tonight, you're going to hear from CARB's SB 1137 implementation team, which is comprised of staff within our monitoring and laboratory division. This division is one of 11 that we have here at CARB, and it's responsible for a whole host of things, from overseeing and maintaining California's extensive statewide ambient air monitoring network, to conducting community-focused air monitoring, to even developing and implementing regulatory programs. So tonight, this team is going to present on the development of performance standards for emission detection systems, which is going to be a foundational part of establishing the clarity that we need on the requirements for leak detection that's established by SB 1137. We're also going to have a question and answer period during the public comment segment of tonight's meeting, and we'll try to get your questions answered to the extent that we can. But I do want to acknowledge that we are very much in the early stages of CARB's rule development process. So now is actually just a really critical time for us to hear from you. So that way you can help us shape how we move forward. So we welcome your comments and suggestions as we move forward on this rulemaking and look forward to hearing from you tonight. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic to Doug Ito, the State Oil and Gas Supervisor. Doug?
Thanks, Courtney. Thank you, everyone, for spending your evening with us today. I'm Doug Ito, the State Oil and Gas Supervisor overseeing CalGEM. By way of a brief background to CalGEM, in 2019, legislation was passed renaming us to the California Geologic Energy Management Division, and more significantly added public health, safety, and the environment to our statutory mission. This was really the beginning of our institutional change as the state regulatory agency overseeing the oil, gas, and geothermal industries. We are much more focused now on managing the responsible decline and decommissioning of old oil and gas infrastructure in California. As this slide illustrates, the decline in oil and gas production has been underway for decades. And with it, the oil and gas industry has experienced significant changes. We expect this trend to continue. Programmatically, CalGEM's oil and gas permitting actions shifted dramatically to plugging wells as our statutory mission and overall posture evolved. Since 2018, permits focused on plugging and permanently sealing wells, the blue line, have come to dominate our permit volumes over time. Last year, permits to plug and permanently seal wells represented over 3/4 of all permits we issued. And this year, we're continuing to implement operational and environmental review improvements that will impact our permitting activity, but we expect to continue our focus on plugging wells as the dominant trend. Tonight, we're focused on the implementation of Senate Bill 1137, which took effect in June of last year. For your reference, we're dropping a link into the chat to the proposed regulatory text. SB 1137 was signed in 2022, and among other things, established restrictions on oil and gas operations within 3,200 feet of sensitive receptors. That 3,200-foot area is called a health protection zone, which I'll go into a little more detail on my next slide. Originally scheduled to begin in January of 2023, CalGEM only had about a month of implementation before the oil industry qualified a ballot measure for the November 2024 election. The ballot measure suspended implementation and prevented us from taking further implementation actions. Then in June of last year, the industry withdrew the ballot measure, making the provisions of 1137 effective immediately. Among the first steps CalGEM took were to return over 2,000 permit applications that were pending before CalGEM. This was necessary because the statute requires operators to identify whether any permit application is inside or outside of the 3,200-foot health protection zone. This slide lists a few other things Senate Bill 1137 requires of operators, including inventories and maps of their proposed operations, controls for light, sound, and dust impacts related to operations, offering water sampling and testing under certain circumstances, and the development and implementation of leak detection and response plans, which is a subject of the CARB rulemaking effort. This slide shows a screenshot of CalGEM's Health Protection Zone mapping tool, but I would encourage you to view it live through the link. The Health Protection Zone map is an online dynamic tool for the public, operators, and CalGEM staff. We published this tool within a few weeks of SB 1137 being effective to enable users to visualize the health protection zones, access the underlying data, and send feedback to CalGEM about location information that may need to be updated. Since the health protection zones are continuously changing as residential, commercial, and public space land uses change, these maps are a useful tool, which we update periodically. To fulfill documentation requirements under Senate Bill 1137, operators have the primary responsibility of ensuring any data that they submit is accurate. So while these maps provide a starting point for them, they cannot rely on them exclusively. In the same way, CalGEM staff use the maps to validate what operators submit, but also use more updated data received and verified from the public or from the operators in their permit applications. The maps are playing a critical public transparency role since anyone can use them to find a geographic location of interest, see the health protection zone information, and provide feedback if information needs to be updated. Tonight, CalGEM will be focused on proposed amendments to the emergency regulations and our current rulemaking effort to adopt permanent regulations. The emergency regulations were originally adopted in 2023 to provide immediate guidance for SB 1137 implementation and include such things as defining where to start and end the measurement of the 3,200-foot setback, and identifying various reporting requirements and information submittals for operators. Emergency regulations generally have a 2-year limit, but due to the pause created by the referendum, the emergency regulations for Senate Bill 1137 will expire at the end of June of 2026. Thanks for your engagement tonight. I hope it's been informative and will generate a lot of questions that we can answer for you. That concludes my portion, so I'll turn it back over to Sarah.
Thank you so much, Doug. I really appreciate that overview and that foundational context that you provided us. So I just want to offer a quick reminder of tonight's approach. We will first be hearing from CalGEM that will highlight information focused on the proposed changes from emergency regulations. And then we will hear from CARB, who will share focus areas and approach ahead. Next slide, please. I'm happy to introduce Rohit and Ibukun to provide the review of key issues for pre-rulemaking review. Please take it away when you're ready.
Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Rohit Sharma, and I'm CalGEM's Chief Deputy of Operations, overseeing all 3 CalGEM districts. I have been with the CalGEM for over 13 years now. A little bit about me before we begin. I earned my master's degree in geology from Fresno State and my PhD in environmental and atmospheric sciences from South Dakota School of Mines. Over the year, I have been involved in several environmental programs with CalGEM, and the main goal of all these programs has always been to protect public health and environment. I know there is a lot to understand about emergency regulations and our current effort to adapt permanent regulations. We are highlighting 7 areas tonight. I will go over residence, parks, and measuring distances. And my colleague Ibukun Ajay will discuss stratigraphic wells, water sampling, neighborhood notification, and temporary facilities. I will start with the definition of residence with the section that defines sensitive receptors. Since it can be difficult to verify unauthorized housing, the proposed change is intended to clarify that residences must comply with the land use requirement. In practice, this means an old barn or other buildings that are not residentially zoned will not be a sensitive receptor. Now I will highlight changes related to parks. It can be a little confusing because there are 2 sections to look at, as noted on this slide. I'm going to walk us through what the current emergency regulations require and then discuss the proposed changes. Under the current emergency regulations definition section, parks must be located within a 1/4 mile of other sensitive receptors. The proposed regulation removes the 1/4 mile limit, thereby making the entire park a sensitive receptor. For location outside a health protection zone, existing regulation require an operator to identify all parks within 3,200 feet, which may be confusing. There should be no obvious park or it would be a health protection zone. So the current proposal deletes the reference to parks to minimize that confusion. Instead, when an operator provides information that a location is not within health protection zone, an explanation is required on why the area open to the public for outdoor recreation should not be considered as a park. All parks are areas open to outdoor recreation, but not all areas open to outdoor recreation should be considered parks. The intention is to reflect a simplification of the park definition. That means in practice is parks will be assessed on a case-by-case basis. The next clarification we are highlighting is measuring distances from sensitive receptors. The discussion draft includes changes in the measurements of distances from production facility from the geometric center to the edge closest to the nearest sensory receptor. This is intended to result in consistency of measurements. We propose to clarify section 1765.2C by specifying that the measurements should be taken from edge of the production facility that is closest to a sensitive receptor, rather than from the geometric center of the facility. This change simplifies the guidance and removes any confusion regarding whether the distance should be measured from the geometric center or the edge of the production facility. I will now hand it over to my colleague, Ibukun Ajay, to discuss the remaining proposed changes. And thank you again.
Thank you, Rohit. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ibukun Ajay, and I'm a senior oil and gas engineer based in the CalGEM Ventura office. As Rohit said, I'll be covering the next focus area that we want to discuss with you all today. First, I will start with the discussion around the stratigraphic well. Here we specify that stratigraphic wells drilled to gather geological information for non-fossil fuel purposes are exempt from SB 1137 requirements. For those of you not familiar with what a stratigraphic well is, this is a specific type of well where the purpose is solely to study subsurface geology and rock formation. This specificity here is about consistency with the non-fossil fuel provision in the statute. Next, I'll talk about water testing. The purpose for this requirement is to protect underground water sources that communities rely upon, focusing on operations that have a potential to impact underground water sources. Here, we're talking about planned activities in the health protection zone that would involve drilling through unexposed rock or new formation. These activity sets include new drills, re-drilling, deepening, and sidetrack operation. The proposed regulation required that operators notify owners and tenants and offer to do baseline water testing before the commencement of such operation, as well as follow-up testing at the conclusion of the work to ensure no contamination has occurred. This notification and testing is not required for other routine repair work because this work type are typically carried out on existing active and idle wells that already have adequate protection in place to protect contamination. This protection is achieved through properly installed casing and verified placement of cement around the casing. Existing CalGEM regulations are designed to prevent potential contamination in these cases. CalGEM regulation requires routine testing to maintain the continuous integrity of these wells. In the event of a failure, operators are required to immediately disconnect the well and promptly perform necessary repairs to restore the integrity of the well, thereby ensuring constant protection of underground water resources. Violations and civil penalties and orders may also be issued to operators as appropriate. Next, I will talk about the neighborhood notification. Under the existing law, operators are required to issue a notice to property owners within 3,200 feet radius of planned drilling work. This notice must be sent at least 30 days before the work begins. The purpose of this requirement is to ensure that property owners are informed about the planned activities within their vicinity, giving them sufficient time to request baseline water testing on their property should they choose to do so. Once the notice is issued, property owners have 20 days to respond and request for water sampling and testing. Operators are required to notify the regional water board so they can oversee and witness the water sampling process as well. Operators are also required to notify CalGEM within 5 days of providing this notice, confirming that the relevant nearby property owners and the tenants have been properly notified. CalGEM may grant a waiver for water testing if the operator demonstrates that delaying the work could result in significant harm to life, health, and natural resources. Finally, operators are required to provide both pre and post-operation water testing results no later than 120 days after the completion of the work. Finally, I will talk about temporary facilities. The regulation states that no new production facility shall be constructed or operated in a health protection zone unless determined by the division to be required for protection of public health and safety. But the regulation does not apply to any temporary production facility, which includes facility that have been installed or put into operation for any of the following purposes. First, responding to an oil spill or leak and the associated cleanup, or conducting a plug and abandonment operation, and also for decommissioning work that will be removed within 60 days after completion of the permitted work, unless an extension has been authorized by the division. This now concludes my part of the presentation. Jamie, I'll hand it over to you for the rest of the slides.
Thank you so much, Rohit and Ibukun, for that presentation and for that valuable information. Next slide, please. I'm happy to turn it over to the California Air Resources Board, Lou Dinkler, to focus on the development of performance standards for emission detected systems. Lou, when you're ready, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lou Dinkler, and I'm very pleased to be here on behalf of the SB 1137 implementation team with the California Air Resources Board. The title of this presentation is SB 1137, Development of Performance Standards for Emission Detection Systems. I would like to thank CalGEM for facilitating tonight's event and for inviting CARB to participate. The goal of our presentation tonight is twofold. First is to provide a brief description of SB 1137's leak detection and response plan requirements, CARB's responsibilities under the law, operator implementation deadlines, CARB's rulemaking timeline, and next steps. Second is to solicit your input to inform our technical assessments and identify options that will provide the basis for CARB's regulatory proposal. Existing oil and gas leak detection requirements. In order to provide context for SB 1137, it is important to note that oil and gas production facilities in California are currently subject to leak detection and repair requirements. As depicted on this graphic, Air Pollution Control District rules seek to minimize volatile organic compound and toxic air contaminants. CARB's greenhouse gas emission standards for crude oil and natural gas facilities seek to minimize methane emissions. US EPA has recently amended their new source performance standards with more stringent leak detection thresholds and limitations on previously exempt emission sources. These rules require periodic inspections using handheld instruments and are typically conducted on a quarterly basis. Over the next few slides, I will describe how SB 1137 differs from these existing requirements. Senate Bill 1137 establishes health protection zones around sensitive receptors located within 3,200 feet of oil and gas production wells and production facilities. Sensitive receptors include residences, schools, hospitals, and businesses that are open to the public. And if we can just go back one slide. Thank you. Operators of existing oil and gas wells and production facilities within a health protection zone must prepare and submit something called a leak detection and response plan. The focus of tonight's presentation will be on the requirements of the leak detection and response plan. Next, please. SB 1137 requires the leak detection and response plans to contain 4 components, including a continuously operating emission detection system, an alarm system that alerts the operator when leaks occur, a response protocol for identification and repair of the leaks, and notification of the community when leaks persist and cannot within 48 hours. Next. Under SB 1137, CARB's responsibilities include the development of regulations to set performance standards for the emission detection systems. CARB, in consultation with air pollution control districts, will also identify the pollutants of concern by region, as there is wide variation in the composition of oil and gas emissions throughout California. CARB, in consultation with CalGEM, will review and approve or deny the leak detection and response plans. Additionally, CARB will collaborate with CalGEM to develop methods for providing public access to data generated by emission detection systems. A performance standard refers to a set of defined criteria that a monitoring system should consistently meet during operation, allowing for reliable data collection and decision-making. Essentially, it's a benchmark for how well a system should perform under specific conditions. Examples of performance standards include accuracy, precision, operating range, probability of detection, and time to detection. Next. Leak detection and response plan implementation deadlines for oil and gas operators are established by law and are provided in this table. July 1st, 2028 is a deadline for operators to submit their plans. July 1st, 2029 is the deadline for CARB upon concurrence with CalGEM to either approve or deny the plan. And if denied, we would provide a notice of deficiency. July 1st, 2030 is a deadline for operators to implement the plan, meaning that the emission detection system must be installed and operational. Next, please. Here we see our proposed rulemaking timeline. As of today, we are in the preliminary stages of the rulemaking process. After tonight's introductory public workshop, we will have a second public workshop in late 2025. At the second workshop, we'll present our draft regulatory text, draft supporting documents used to inform our rulemaking, as well as our draft alternatives analysis. In the spring of 2026, we will submit our alternatives analysis to the Department of Finance. By late 2026, we will begin a 45-day public review and comment period. This is when when our staff report and our draft regulatory text will be made available for public comment. The CARB board hearing will take place in late 2026, where the public is again invited to attend and provide comment. By the summer of 2027, we plan to release our final rulemaking package to the Office of Administrative Law for their approval. Our target effective date for this regulation is January 1st, 2028, which is followed by the July 1st, 2028 submission deadline for the operator's leak detection and response plan. Next slide. Okay. To support our rulemaking efforts, CARB staff is consulting with subject matter experts in the field of testing protocols, performance standards, emission modeling, and emission quantification. This includes discussions with the Colorado State University Methane Emissions Technology Evaluation Center and the University of Texas Energy Emissions Modeling and Data Lab. CARB staff have also been in contact with several technology developers, receiving updates on much of the available monitoring and emission detection technology. Lastly, CARB is currently developing a contract to update and enhance our understanding of the chemical composition of emissions specific to California oil and gas wells. Next steps. Currently, our team is evaluating and preparing reports for commercially available monitoring technologies, appropriate alarm thresholds, pollutants of concern, and alternatives. Next slide. As stated earlier, can we go back one? Sorry. There we go. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Yes, as stated earlier, we plan to have 2 more public workshops, one in late 2025 to solicit feedback and to improve our draft regulatory text before we finalize our analysis. We plan to conduct a second workshop in late 2026, where CARB staff will answer questions on the technical supports documents and the additional rulemaking documents. All right, next slide. Okay, that concludes my presentation for tonight. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate you being here, and we look forward to working with you on this important and impactful regulation. We do invite your questions, comments, suggestions, and information about any of the topics discussed thus far. You can reach our team via email address on the screen here and also in the chat thread. We are also available for one-on-one meetings, either in person or remotely. And lastly, you can visit our program webpage provided here. This is where we will post draft documents once they become available for public review. So at this point, I would like to pass the microphone back to Jamie with the Department of Conservation.
Thank you so much, Lou, for that in-depth presentation. Next slide, please. Perfect. We'll stay right here. Okay, we have reached the public comment and open question and answer segment for this evening. I want to remind everyone that we have an extensive list of panelists from CalGEM, CARB, and the Water Board who have a broad range of knowledge and expertise and are available to you for your questions, comments, and input related to SB 1137. The panelists will be introducing themselves to you momentarily before we open the floor for Q&A. But first, I want to take a few moments to share the general guidelines for this portion of the evening. Now, as I just mentioned, we have a panelist-style approach with open Q&A. Please know ahead of time that we may not be able to answer all of your questions, comments, and input. And please remind yourself throughout the duration of the public comment segment that you will be given 2 minutes each to speak. However, if your question exceeds the 2-minute time frame, you can always return back to the virtual line by raising your hand so you can follow up or continue with your question and comment. If a response from one of the panelists also exceeds 2 minutes, Please note that we will direct you to various resources that will support you finding the answer and information that you need. We will also have an FAQ sent out in about a month by April 20th. Next slide, please. Very shortly here, I will be handing it over to my colleague, Sarah Rubin, to facilitate the open question and answer portion of this evening. But let's first walk through just a few more instructions for this piece. For those who are in the Zoom room, please use the raise your hand function to ask a question or share a comment. Again, each person will have about 2 minutes to share. We also have participants joining us by phone this evening. And for those joining us by phone, you will press *9 for English, or you will press *1 for Spanish in order to notify us that you'd like to speak. You will also have 2 minutes to share for those who are joining us by phone. Sarah will go in order of questions and comments received here online and by phone. Sarah will also alternate between those in the Zoom room and those who are joining by phone. With that said, I would like to hand it over to Sarah for this segment.
Thanks, Jamie. Good evening. So I'm going to quickly have our panelists introduce themselves to give everyone a sense of who is here. I'm going to start with my colleagues within the Department of Conservation. You already met Doug. You already met Rohit. You already met Ibakun. Ben, do you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Ben Turner. I'm the Policy Advisor for Department of Conservation.
Mike.
Hello, I'm Mike O'Neill. My team maintains and creates the Health Protection Zone mapping.
Pete.
I'm the District Deputy Manager for CalGEM's Southern District, which includes Los Angeles County.
Thank you. Trey.
Trey Powell, the Northern District Deputy, covering the Orchid, Ventura, and Sacramento offices.
Jacob.
Jacob Roper, Assistant Director for Communications at the Department of Conservation.
Thank you. All right, now we're gonna go through our CARB panelists. Everyone already met Lou. Donnie.
Yeah, good evening. Donnie Jackson, Air Pollution Specialist for California Air Resources Board, working on the rulemaking project.
George. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry. That's okay.
Hi, my name is George Liu. I'm a branch chief with the Monitoring Laboratory Division, and I'm on the SB 1137 team.
Great. Linda.
Hi, I'm Linda Chigarai. I'm a senior attorney here at CARB, and I am helping out the SB 1137 team with the legal questions that arise during rulemaking.
Thank you. Michelle.
Hi, Michelle Wood, Air Pollution Specialist with CARB, working with Donnie as co-leads for the rulemaking aspect of the project.
Matt.
I'm Matt Bray here. I'm our Air Resources Engineer at CARB and part of the team developing our regulation.
Jeremy.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jeremy Smith. I'm a staff air pollution specialist in the Monitoring Lab Division working on SB 1137.
Thanks. And then we'll go to our water board colleagues. Janice.
Yeah, good evening. Janice Sinke here. I'm with the State Water Board Division of Water Quality, and I oversee our groundwater monitoring section.
Great. Bill.
Bill is not with us today, but we can move on to the next. I'm Annalisa Kihara. I am the Assistant Deputy Director in the Division of Water Quality at the State Water Board.
Welcome. Okay, so we are ready to dive in. If you are interested in making a comment or asking a question, please use the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to start with Cesar. Cesar, go ahead.
Hi, thank you. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. The first was for Rohit, who mentioned that there was land use and any like barn or structure within agriculture or differently zoned areas would not fall under SB 1137. any building that could be used as a residence that would not be considered under the law, despite being a rigid walled structure and occupied by sensitive receptors, wouldn't fall under this. It sounds like, would this incentivize counties to change land use to not have SB 1137 apply to these occupied structures? My second question is for
Wait. Sorry, let's do
Yes.
one at a time.
Okay,
And
thank
I'm
you.
thinking, because we're trying to do kind of 2 minutes at a time, why don't we see if we could do 1 or 2 questions and then we can take you again. There's just a lot of people and I want to get to everyone. So Rohit, you want to take that first one?
Yes. I think all the structures, apartment building, if it's designed for the residents and people are living inside that structure, that would consider as a residence, according to the definition. Shelter, old barns, those are not structure for people to live inside, so they are not considered as a residence within the definition. But CalGEM will still look into each cases when we receive to make sure that those are structure or not structure which are designed for the human occupancy. Thank you.
Okay, let's do one more, then we can circle back to you in a little bit. Go ahead.
Thank you for the clarification. My second one is around water. It sounds like operators are going to be doing self-testing for exemptions. Is this testing going to be reviewed or seen by the agency or a third party? And how will the testing be verified? And also, who deems if the levels within the testing are deemed insignificant for the dangers?
Janice, do you want to start that one?
Sure. If I understand correctly, the water testing, how will we be interpreting the data? Is that the gist of your question?
No, I don't trust companies to
Oh.
report for them to be trustworthy. If they do self-testing that's not overseen by somebody, we'll send
Right.
them be there when they're doing the testing to verify the findings and to make sure that the conditions are manipulated in a way that will change those findings in a way that's beneficial to the operator.
Right. Well, all field samples are to be collected by an accredited person that is been trained to collect the samples. And also all the laboratory tests are to be conducted by what we call California Environmental Laboratory Accreditation Program, or ELAP laboratories. So that's a program that's run here by the State Water Board, and this ensures the environmental testing laboratories are, that are used for regulatory purposes meet the requirements of the state's drinking water and wastewater and hazardous waste programs. So I can give you a link in the chat with more information on that ELAP certification and a list of labs.
Right. But it sounds like the certified person can still be employed by the company and acting in their best interest, as opposed to a third party that needs to make sure that those are verifiable tests. Right?
Yeah, they could be a consultant of the operator or the operator itself, anybody that is trained and, is trained in collection of the samples. And it could be through the laboratory as well.
Thank you. Okay, so we can circle back to you, but next I'm going to go to Riddhi. I hope I'm saying your name right.
Hi, Sarah. Sorry, I was just trying to go off on mute.
That's okay.
My name is, you're fine. It's actually pronounced Riddhi, like rhythm. I was just leaving a comment. I know a lot of other local EJCBOs will provide comment on the technical aspect, but I was curious. I know this is regarding the implementation of SB 1137, but regarding the authority of the agency, from my understanding, from what the governor's decision was a few years ago on fracking permits, that if the permits do affect the health or climate, the agency is allowed to deny the permit. And from my understanding, this seems like a lot of taxpayer money being invested in a lot of this regulation. And I was curious, why not just invest the time in denying any new permits?
Got it. Ben, you want to respond to this one?
Sure.
Can I finish?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Go
I'm
ahead.
so sorry. I totally thought you were done. Keep going.
No, it's okay, Sarah. But so I just, from my understanding, wouldn't it be a better addressing of this, because a lot of us have been around since the public health rulemaking has been going around for half a decade, and it seems like it's going to take another half decade. And I live within 3,200 feet of active oil and gas wells, and it seems like if I have to wait another half decade, wouldn't it be more prudent to just deny the permit outright and allow the oil and gas wells within 3,200 feet to be phased out from the agency's part, even if it's not able to be done under this state law?
So if an operator, so the SB 1137 prohibits CalGEM from issuing many different kinds of permits within 3,200 feet of any sensitive receptor. So if an operator wants to, ask for a new drill or a sidetrack or a deepening or some other kind of permit that isn't necessary to protect public health and safety, they would not be able to get a permit. So they're not going to be able to get be able to expand their projects except for under very narrow circumstances that specifically benefit or prevent hazards to health and safety.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm next going to go to Pierre, Tyler, Elizabeth, then I'm going to go back to Cesar, then I'll go to Chris, and we'll see where we're at. All right, Pierre, your turn.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, my question is regarding sensitive receptors that have been appended, have been submitted, or false sensitive receptors that have been submitted either in an NOI or in an animal sensitive receptor inventory and maps. What is the process to take those off if we realize that this was actually not a sensitive receptor? And because at present, it's quite cumbersome taking that off. Is that process going to be streamlined? Are we going to get some guidance on that?
Thank you for the question.
I'll take that one,
Rohit?
Sarah.
Oh, go ahead. Okay, Mike.
Yeah, so my team maintains the map, and it's a process. Internally, we have our standard operating procedures for receiving those NOIs and working through whether or not a change is needed to the map. So when those changes become approved, then my team will implement those changes. So I appreciate your patience on that. We've been working through that process of figuring it out, but it will get more streamlined and pick up its pace. Meaning, but we'll do updates as needed on a periodic basis. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. All right, Tyler.
Well, and maybe we can jump in a little bit on that last one, just from the district side of things.
Sure.
So if you are an operator and you are contesting, or if you're inside the mapped area of the HPZ, but you feel like that is not a sensitive receptor, you can talk to the permitting staff at the district, and they'll work you through what kind of evidence we would like to see to demonstrate that, that structure, maybe we saw in the aerial photos, it looks like a house, but if you can show that, no, that's a shed that you store your chemicals in, or some sort of equipment, a tractor or something. So that would be something you can work with the district, and then we can then work with Mike's team to update the map later and process the relevant permit correctly after we identify that it's not actually in a HPZ.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to Tyler, Elizabeth, then Cesar. Go ahead, Tyler.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks all for the presentations and for all the work that's gone into developing these regulations so far. I had a question about the process for replacement and relocation of existing facilities. And basically asking what guardrails will be in place to make sure that any proposed quote unquote replacement or relocation of facilities within the health protection zone is not functionally new construction. Because in other contexts, for example, like the air permitting world, and I saw that US EPA's new source review requirements, for example, were provided as background. We have seen, industry find ways around the stricter new requirements around new facilities by claiming very significant completely new facilities or equipment as quote unquote alterations. So what sort of guardrails will be there to prevent that kind of abuse of the system?
Thank you for that question. Mark, you want to take that one?
Sure. Without new wells, there's really little need for operators to develop new facilities. So there is an exemption that allows construction of new facilities to replace existing ones under specific circumstances, and that would include limited alteration, modification, and relocation. So one has to look at the specific wording to see whether or not it can be done. There's some limits on location and other elements that have to be met. That our districts will look at when this is contemplated, and that's the purpose of providing the notice, so that you can get clearance and agreement that it is within the wording allowed. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to chime in that we've got one person who's phoned in. So if you are the person that has phoned in and you want to speak, I want to make sure you know that you'd want to push *9 on your phone to let us know. I've also checked in with our Spanish interpreters, and as of yet, we don't have anyone raising their hand on our Spanish language 800 number. So Elizabeth, you are up next, and then Cesar, I'm going to come to you. Then Chris, Michelle, Mary, and Pierre will circle back to you. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Hi, Sarah. This is Elizabeth Fisher with Earth Justice, and we're working with Voices in Solidarity Against Oil in Neighborhoods on comments. But tonight I have two specific questions. One is on stratigraphic wells, and the other one is about the federal, state, or local laws exemption. So on stratigraphic wells, are you all tracking that there seems to be language missing from the proposed regulation, and what is that language supposed to say? The way I read it, it's a sentence fragment, basically a noun clause without a verb. I'll pause there.
Thank you for bringing this up. Rohit, you want this one, or Ibakun?
Yeah, if you can submit us a comment, and we'll look into the issue, and we'll update the language if it needs.
Okay, great. And then the second question was the new language at 1765.5C5, which is page 17, exempts new or temporary production facilities required by federal, state, or local laws and regulations. We're curious about the motivation behind this language, since we're not aware of any federal or state laws that would be in conflict here. And of course, local laws can't be less protective than SB 1137. So clarification could be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Rohit, you want that one?
Yeah, I will try, and Mark, if you want to add something, you can add it. I think these are meant for any order from the federal or local agency to fix anything for the purpose of risk or public health. So we allow them in that instances.
Yeah.
That is the purpose of them.
And I would add, this allows for companies to install new safety equipment or other things that are required potentially by other agencies or even the feds, such as vapor recovery on tanks or safety, or gas leak detection systems and so forth. Those all fall within the definition of production facility. And so if one was to add systems like that, it could be considered new construction. And this allows it as an exemption because it is to the benefit of safety and health.
Thanks, you two. Okay, Cesar, you're back. Let's see if we can knock out a couple more of your 7.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. EPA standards were previously mentioned as a threshold. Will the previously made more stringent standards be the threshold? Or if the new, less trustworthy and less protective EPA administration, if they come up with new thresholds, would those be considered?
Rohit, who would you like to answer that?
Yeah, I don't know if it's related to water or air. What's the EPA standard you're talking about?
I think CARB was the one that was talking about some EPA standards during the slideshow. And they said that the previously made EPA standards that are more stringent than the existing ones in California were the ones that were going to be used as the threshold. And I just want to make sure that those stronger standards are going to be used and not ones that change under the new administration.
Got it. Linda?
All right. So for clarification, the EPA sets minimum standards, and then California, in response, has to develop what's known as a state plan, a regulation that is at least as stringent. And so CARB is presently in the process of amending its oil and gas regulation. We have a workshop coming up on that one. But CARB's work on SB 1137 is separate. SB 1137 provides an additional level of protection for communities within the 3,200 foot radius of, an oil and gas facility. And we are only going to be setting the performance standards for that continuous emission detection system and consulting with CalGEM. So it's not going to be a matter of setting emission standards here. It's setting standards for the equipment itself. Hopefully that helps clarify.
Yes.
Janice, did you want to add in? Wait 1 sec. Janice, did you want to add to that? I see your hand.
I just wanted, no, on a different topic. Oh, wait.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go ahead, Cesar.
Wonderful, thank you. One of my other questions is if the new emission detection systems and alarms for notification are only for new wells, or is that also going to be asked for wells that are within the existing setback zone at the moment?
Who wants to take that one? Go ahead.
Hi, this is Michelle with CARB. Another air quality question there. And my understanding is that SB 1137 covers existing wells, not just new wells. So we're researching performance standards for the full suite of existing wells, not just what we're anticipating coming down the pike.
Thank you. Okay, Janice, let me come to you before we go to the next person.
Yeah, thank you. Real quick, just to add on to my response to Cesar about the water sampling, I forgot to mention that the water boards will be notified and we'll have the ability to go out and witness the sampling. And a lot of this information of how the samples are to be collected and what for and what not will be available to the public in a notice to operators soon. And we'll have that posted on our website as well.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. I'll raise my hand again for my next set of
Okay, great. All right, so I'm gonna go to Chris, Michelle, Mary, and then I'll give you more names. Go ahead, Chris. Chris, you're unmuted. All right, maybe we should, let me go to Michelle and Chris, I can try to come back to you. Let's try for Michelle. There we
Hi
go.
everyone, my name is Michelle Gaffar. I'm an attorney with Earth Justice. I'm sharing comments today on behalf of the Voices in Solidarity Against Oil in Neighborhoods Coalition, or Vision. I just want to start by commending both CalGEM and CARB for moving this rulemaking forward expeditiously to ensure that we do see the full implementation of the public health and safety protections in SB 1137 and to avoid any regulatory gaps that might further delay long-awaited relief for community members. We understand that advancing these regulations in a timely manner is a lot of work and involves the coordination of multiple agencies. We're pleased to see these efforts moving forward. As others have mentioned, SB 1137 builds on a lot of previous work by CalGEM and its public health rulemaking, and a landmark public health report released last year from CalGEM's scientific advisory panel. And community members and the public spent years engaging in that work with CalGEM and submitted significant comments and feedback to help develop the strongest set of public health regulations. So we urge CalGEM to ensure that the SB 1137 permanent regulations reflect that hard work and incorporates and also further strengthens the provisions in its draft public health regulations to the fullest extent possible. So, for example, those draft regulations included requirements around non-emergency spill reporting and pipeline cleanup that don't appear in the 1137 pre-rulemaking regulations, but that are critical to health and safety. And furthermore, CalGEM should incorporate the recommendations from the public health report as well, since that fully bears on the agency's work now and in fact will be used to support the 1137 rulemaking package. So I'd welcome hearing how CalGEM plans to incorporate some of these missing pieces in the 1137 permanent regulations, and otherwise we look forward to seeing revised regulations. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's see if we can try for Chris one more time. Can we try to unmute Chris again?
Actually, Chris typed in his question, which was asking whether or not CARB has published or is planning to publish a list of recommended or approved technologies to support compliance with SB 1137, specifically regarding the continuous monitoring requirements around oil and gas operations. And if implemented, will there be an updated map on which wells are in compliance?
CARB team, want to comment? Anyone in particular?
There may have been two questions embedded in there, so I'll take a crack at the first one, and the second one I might need you to repeat. First one, yes, we plan on releasing a report towards the end of this year, where we plan on giving a review of all of our research and our outreach to technology developers on what are the latest commercially available technologies for what folks can implement for the emission detection systems. Did I catch that question correctly? Did I answer your question?
I would add to that we're looking into developing our performance standards for the emissions detection systems. We're considering whether recommending or approving certain technologies would be part of that, but it's not necessarily something we're for sure going to do is list or recommend specific technologies.
And then the second part of the question was if an updated map on the wells in compliance with that would be published.
We don't have an answer to that question yet, so we will add that to our list of things to consider during the next year.
Thank you. Okay, Mary, you are up. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry. Hi, I just want to make sure we're going to be listing performance standards and not basically equipment. So it'd be up to the operators to select the equipment that would meet those performance standards.
That's helpful clarification, George. Thank you. Mary, do we have you? Okay. We can try to come back to Mary also. Pierre, I think your mic works. Can we unmute Pierre? There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. Go for it.
Yeah, my question is, good evening again, everyone. My question is regarding the change from measuring the 3,200 setback from the center point of the facility to the edge of the facility. Now, there is no clear definition of what the edge of the facility really means. Is it the functional edge, as in the furthest component of the facility from the center point of the facility, or is it the property line of the facility? What do we mean by edge of facility? That can be a little bit ambiguous.
Thank you for that question. Rohit.
Yeah, the edge of the facility, production facility would be the fence line of the production facility. So it would include, so if we take a center of the measurement from the center of the facility, I think to make it consistent, we have considered to take it from the edge of the facility, which would, I think, clarify some of the issues, because if we take a center of the facility and the facility is pretty big, most of the health production zone is within the facility. So having that on the edge of the facility would make more sense.
The reason I'm saying that is because when you change from the center point of the facility to the edge of the facility, you're changing the 3,200 foot setback by a considerable amount. Now, if the fence of the facility is much larger than the actual size of the functional components of the facility, isn't that a little counterintuitive? Do you get my problem? Because from the center of the facility 3,200 feet out, that radius is completely different when you go to the edge. Now we're talking about an inner circle and an outer circle.
There might be components on the edge of the facility, because the tanks or vessels or other production facility components can be on the edge of the facility. So in order to make sure we include all the risks, and that's the reason why we have included the edge of the facility and not the center of the facility.
Thank you. Trey, I just want to double check. Did you want to add anything else in?
Yeah, I'll just, I think that is a good point, that maybe there is some, could be in the current text, some misunderstanding about what that does mean. You know, does edge of facility mean the edge of the tank, or does it mean the edge of the emplacement that it's in? So that's a good comment. We will try to make sure we clarify that for the next round.
And I just want to thank everyone, because all these things you're raising are exactly the reasons that we're holding these meetings. This is a draft. We're looking for your feedback. This totally helps us. So we really appreciate you being here. All righty. So next, should we try for Mary one more time? We couldn't hear her before. Mary, can you hear us? Okay, so I'm going to go to Leslie, and then Kyle. I'm going to come to you, then Cesar, then Ellen, and then Chad, and then we'll do more. All right, so Leslie, your turn.
Hi, yeah, this is Leslie Purcell. I'm in Ventura, and I'm sorry, I haven't really looked seriously and extensively into these regulations, but I'm wondering about existing wells, which we have quite a lot of, especially on our west side, and there are people that live very close to the wells that are operating at this time, and I'm not sure how close there are any wells to schools at this point, but I'm just wondering, how will these regulations apply to those existing wells? Is it only if they are doing something to it, or I guess that's my question.
EOC team, who would like to take that one?
I can take it if you like.
Sure.
So there's two different sets of regulations we're talking about today. One of them is a discussion draft to rewrite the emergency regulations and make them permanent for CalGEM, and that will require notification for when things are done to wells, like what you're describing, under current facilities. The one that CARB's working on will require leak detection and response plans for existing facilities. So all those facilities that are in current operation, you're going to have tighter controls to prevent leaks and reduce emissions, and they'll have to be in compliance with those new requirements by 2030, or they'll have to cease operations.
Thank you, Ben. Kyle, you're up.
Wonderful. Can you hear me? Looks
Yes.
like it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So I have a question about water testing. I put it in the little question section. And it kind of builds on a question that my executive director actually posted as well. I don't think she's still logged on. She's on the East Coast time. Her question was specifically, in what scenario would water sampling be required, considering the water sampling is required for drilling a well? I know that includes sidetracks and deepening, but the assumption is that both of those types of operations, including new drills, would be banned in the public health protection zone. And then the follow-up is, will rework permits still trigger water sampling? Because if a rework permit is granted in the public health protection zone for an emergency scenario, it's likely that scenario could put groundwater at risk. And so there might be a reason to actually do that water sampling.
Thank you. All righty. Ibakun, Ben, do one of you want to start this one?
I can take part of that question. Yeah, so in scenario, you just described one of them for new permits that are going to be prohibited except they meet a standard for protection of public health and safety. But there might be cases where you have operators that have already approved permits that were approved before the law went into effect last year. And if those were drilling permits, they're still subject to the law where they have to do water sampling once they kick off work, before they kick off work. So that might be a situation where an operator has a permit and they still have to do water sampling if it involves drilling.
Thank you. Okay, I found out that there's somebody who's called in by phone. And what you want to do to let us know you want to speak, and then we can hear you and unmute you, you want to push *9. And then that should tell our system to raise the little hand. That way we can unmute you. I don't think we have the ability to unmute people unless they raise their hand. So, you could send me a text if you can't get through. Let me give you my cell number.
Sarah,
Hopefully,
can you hang on a second, please?
okay, sure.
The 559 number?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, we're patching them through right now.
Oh, great. Okay, great.
Hello?
And then, yeah, we got you. Go ahead.
Oh, hello. I wanted to ask, will SB 1137 implementation coordinate with the new updates to the California oil and gas rule updates happening under CARB?
Who wants to take that one?
Okay. Sorry, I was actually in the middle of typing a response to another question. So this is SB 1137 versus the oil and gas rulemaking at CARB.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so the two regulations are being handled separately. However, our teams are in constant contact. So under the oil and gas amendments, we are currently amending our requirements to be at least as stringent as the US EPA rule that was put into place on March 8th of 2024. We are required to get those regs in a state plan and submitted to US EPA by March 9th of 2026. So we do plan to go before the board in October of this year. So workshops and, rulemaking activity on that one is very definitely moving along. And, you can see what all we're doing on the webpage. With regard to SB 1137, it's designed to act as an extra layer of protection for those communities within 3,200 feet of a facility. And so, whereas the oil and gas rule generally says, okay, facilities, you need to do leak detection and repair quarterly, we're saying if you've got a community within 3,200 feet of you, you need to also install a continuously operating emission detection system that is designed to pick up specific chemicals of concern in that area. And we're in charge of just setting the performance standards for that system. The owner and operator is ultimately going to need to look at their own situation and see what system works best to fit those needs. So very different rulemakings, but definitely intended to work together. The oil and gas rule is just methane. This one is the VOCs and such.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to try Mary. We're going to try for you again. So let's see if we can get Mary on the line. All right, you're unmuted. Oh, we got to unmute her again. There we go. You should be able to speak.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Thank you all for this process. I tried to generate a question last night, and I guess my concern as a citizen of Signal Hill is you have this data, you have these tools, but when I go on, it's hard for me to access what you're proposing in the future because it's all going to be industry reported. And I looked at your data today and I think it starts with 2021. So I hope in the facts, if all this stuff is going to be self-reported, a lot of the regulations are weakened, operators must notify community members about the water. And I think the concern I have being a citizen of Signal Hill is our water is already problematic at the at all levels. I mean, we have benzene, it's not that high yet, but in your facts and going forward, I hope you enable citizens to have the tools to monitor because it seems like it's going to be a lot of self-reporting from the industry. Thank you. Oh, and also, I was trying to mention last night, supposedly my city has a pending permit extension, but I'm still not sure where I go to find that. So in the future, if we can just help citizens find the information.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you, Mary. All right. From our team, anyone want to comment? I don't know, Mike, if you want to re-talk about using the map, but I also know if you tried it, I also wonder maybe we should connect with you after the meeting about Well Finder and the map. What do you think, Jacob?
There was a lot in there. So I think a lot of it talked about self-reporting, and that might be conflating multiple issues. We use some confusing terminology, I think, in our statutes, like notice of intent. So it sounds like they're providing a notice, but that's actually like a permit request from the operators to CalGEM that CalGEM has to evaluate. and verify the information in it. So, and then they have to we require them to do notification under many circumstances for different kinds of permits. So I'm not precisely sure what reporting Ms. Gonzalez was referring to. So maybe we could just follow up, or she could email in a question and we could help get a detailed response.
That's a good idea. Mary, if you don't mind sending an email, then we can follow up with you directly. Can we redrop the link for email? And you could also email me or text me, Mary, directly. My name is on all the notice stuff on the website. All right. I'm glad we got to.
Mary, I'm sending you a private message right now.
Oh, good. Thanks, Jacob. Okay, Cesar, you're up.
Hi, thank you. I saw that there was going to be some studies done with, I think, the University of Colorado and maybe the University of Texas. I saw the Longhorns there. Will this be studying more than methane and include BTECs and VOCs? And would those co-pollutants also be reported in the alarms and alerts for communities?
Hi, thank you for your question. This is Jeremy Smith with CARB. Yes, we are currently partnering with Colorado State. Not partnering, we're collaborating and discussing items with Colorado State and the University of Texas. And as part of this implementation, we are establishing a contract with a California university to look at the speciation of various oil and gas components and what those VOC profiles are for those components. We'll be definitely looking at more than just methane. We're looking at a suite of toxics and VOCs that we've found in the literature, and hopefully we'll be able to get that information done to help with this implementation.
Wonderful, thank you. So my last question is if companies that have a history of spills, would they fall under any extra scrutiny for their permits and for having more alerts and fence line monitoring?
Janice, Annalisa, I don't know if you guys want to take that one or anyone else on the team.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's something we'll have to circle back. And if you could provide my email, I don't think I can get to the attendees chat. I can certainly get back to you on that, unless Annalisa, you have an answer.
No, I think I agree. I'd like to see the comment, and I think we would work with CalGEM because I think the question is, what's the trigger? And if there's a history of some kind of potential non-compliance, if they're held to a higher standard. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cesar.
Yes, non-compliance and also the amount of spill reported to the Cal OES system or any other agencies as well. Just because I know there's quite a few operators and owners, especially here in Kern County, that have had a sharp increase in their Cal OES spill reports, especially in the last year.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to Ellen, Chad, Pierre, back to Tyler, then to Michael, then to Leslie. Ellen, your turn. Ellen, I think you're unmuted. Oh, there we go.
Okay, now you can hear. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, and I am new to this too, so just as a thought there. I was curious. I know very little about it, but what I've read recently, and I didn't see anything about stores like grocery stores, or animal facilities that house animals like a shelter, rescue, that type of thing, and was wondering if those were protected as well.
Great question. Ben, you want to go to that one?
Sure. So the SB 1137 has a really broad, in the statute, and then it's being elaborated in the regulation, but a really broad conception of what a sensitive receptor is. And it essentially includes anywhere where folks live, learn, like schools, play, like parks, receive healthcare, like any, clinics, health facilities, or any business that's open to the public. So it could be like if it's like a store would certainly be a sensitive receptor, or if it's a place where people visit and it's open to the public, like if it was, SPCA animal shelter, that would be somewhere where people go in and out of, members of the public go and in and out and engage in some kind of interaction with that facility, then it is a sensitive receptor.
Thanks for that clarification. Okay, Chad, your turn.
Hi.
Hi.
Good evening. Can you hear me all right? All right. My question is for landowners. As a landowner that's near an active oil field, I noticed that in the frequently asked questions that it says that Senate Bill 1137 doesn't prevent local governments from issuing permits for development or restrict development, but it is not clear as to how setbacks would work or if there are any restrictions at all in developing new sensitive receptors. So I am trying to get some clarity on what exactly would the setback be for a new receptor
Got it. Got it. I think we have
near
it.
an active well.
Yeah, I
Got
can help with that. So SB 1137 prohibits CalGEM from issuing oil and gas permits. It does not prohibit anybody from permitting new sensitive receptors. So if somebody wants to build a restaurant or something next to an oil and gas facility, they can do so. That new restaurant would be a sensitive receptor, and the oil and gas operator would then be subject to the restrictions under SB 1137. So the SB 1137 applies to what CalGEM can permit and what the air quality regulations are associated with the facility, as determined by CARB and CalGEM and other collaborative regulatory agencies, but it does not restrict non-oil and gas related activities.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Previously, before 1137, we were working on the premise that the original setback was 200 feet. Is that still the rule of thumb as regards to a development of this nature? And if so, where would I find documentation like that I can share with county planning commissioners?
So for a local jurisdiction wanting to do, if you're applying for a permit to construct something within your local jurisdiction, that'll be up to whatever rules are applicable in that local jurisdiction. CalGEM won't make land use decisions about what's going to get built around oil and gas facilities or how close things get built to oil and gas facilities. CalGEM's jurisdiction is related to what's going on with wells and associated production facilities. So it's I don't want to give you like so I don't know what jurisdiction you're in, but you should contact, if it's within the city boundaries, you should contact the city. If it's within a county, you should contact the county.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna go to Pierre, Tyler, Leslie, and then Michael, and then we'll look to start wrapping stuff up. Pierre.
Hi, thank you again, Sarah. Thank you again, Sarah. My question is regarding the annual sensitive receptor inventory and maps that are due July 1st. The breadth of the task is quite cumbersome in the sense that when these things are packaged, it's not quite easy to email them because the size of the files are extremely large, especially with the maps. Has there been any consideration with respect to creating a web portal that these could be submitted through, so that it's visible to the public and visible to us and yourselves as well? And then the follow-up question to that is, since we are in the process of having this discussion draft, the public comments on discussion draft, the timeline presented presented during the presentation goes further than July 1st deadline. what will be the guiding what would be used as guidance in, reviewing these animal sensitive receptor inventory maps that will go in, that are mandated to go in July 1st? And if they do not go in July 1st, is the penalty for not submitting prior or on July 1st still going to be upheld now that we're still discussing all this?
Yeah, I can take that. Thanks for that question. So what I'll say is that I think you've raised some really good points, and we're constantly walking through internally, kind of walking through a process that will be practical, because we recognize the size and the volume of data that potentially going to be coming in through this inventory submission. So we're working on an NTO that will provide additional clarification to the operators and some templates and examples on how to compile their data and submit it in a way where it's probably going to be easier for us to intake that data and also carry out their review. So I'll say within a week or two, we should be getting an NTO out to the operator that will provide more clarity around this.
Thank you. Okay, next we are going to Leslie. Oh, I'm sorry, Tyler. Tyler, then Leslie. Tyler, go ahead.
Hello again. Thank you so much. I had another question regarding the water sampling and testing, and specifically the limitation that it be limited to where the drilling is through previously unexposed rock or formation. I'm curious for the reasoning behind this, considering there are many other types of work that can be done on wells that I believe community would have very serious water quality concerns. One that is particularly coming to mind is well acidization. And so I'm wondering if if that would be included under this proposed definition, and if not, why?
I can take that. So the acidization is not allowed within a HPZ. Only work that would be allowed within HPZ is if there is a risk to the public health and environment. And for the water sampling, law says that it would be the notification is required when there is a drilling, and we consider drilling as drilling a new well, deepening, redrill, or sidetracks, which require notification to the neighborhood. All other work would only be approved if there is a health risk. And we do have an existing regulation to monitor any contamination or damage of the existing well. So if there is any damage to or leak in the well, there are regulations to address those. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Leslie.
Hi again. So I was like surprised and thinking, oh my gosh, it's going to be 4 more years until this is actually going to be implemented, but possibly that's the amount of time it takes. I don't know. As a member of the public, I was hoping it would be sooner. But my other comment applies to Los Angeles area, and I have worked on the Ballona wetlands conservation in the past, and it's now in public hands, public trust. And I'm wondering why I've been told that this is not going to apply to the SoCal gas storage field, where there are wells that are monitoring wells. It's an old existing oil field, and there's still wells from the oil drilling that apparently are leaking. We know they were leaking certainly in the past, and that's an air quality issue, as well as we've got groundwater and aquifers there that are supposed to be of drinking water quality. So I'm wondering, could this apply? And there's also people living at Playa Vista, which is right within this area, and a school, an elementary school there too. So I'm wondering how this could apply to that old oil field and gas storage field as it is.
Yeah, I can take that. So let me first clarify that there are some regulatory packages that are coming in the future that are being developed in relation to 1137. But 1137, the restrictions within the health protection zone on new wells and reworks, anything that needs a permit through CalGEM, that's been in effect now for since last summer. So we've been working under the emergency regulations, and this process is just converting those emergency regulations into permanent regulations and making tweaks here and there to help clarify issues. The other concern you brought up was about, you noted a couple UGS fields. So the statute does exclude underground gas storage wells from the health protection zone restrictions. However, any oil and gas wells or any type of oil well drilling that's not related to the underground gas storage facilities that are on those same fields are subject to the restrictions on the health protection zone.
Thank you. Okay, Michael, your turn.
Hello, this is Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm kind of piggybacking on Chad's question earlier. I'm working on a housing project that's next to an existing oil field, and reviewing SB 1137, I can't see any prohibitions against us putting housing, and I think that you confirmed with Chad that that is the case. I'm wondering if there's anywhere I can find some documentation that actually states that, so that we can show this to our planners.
Ben?
Sure. There's nothing in the, so I mean, in terms of documentation, the law does not say anything about building houses or building sensitive receptors. The only thing it talks about is restricting oil and gas development. So I mean, I don't know what you would need from us to say what the law says. So I guess this is about like the regulations that are implementing the emergency or making the emergency regulations permanent, and forthcoming leak detection and response plan regulations. If this is like a permitting issue you're running into with your local government, you might want to just reach out to us on the side, and we could further explore that.
If you want to name drop like Ben and me and reference this meeting, or we can have an email that you could say, I heard about it in this meeting, any of that would be fine.
Yeah. Yep, happy to discuss it.
Great. Okay, so I've got Patricia, Pierre, Kyle, and Woody. And then we're running to the end of our meeting. Go ahead, Patricia. You should be unmuted, but I don't hear you yet. And it worked last night, so you should work tonight. There we go. Now, try one more time to unmute her. There we go. Patricia? Okay. Why don't we go to Pierre, and then Patricia, I'll come back to you. It should work. It worked for you last night. All right. Okay, his hand went down. All right. Kyle.
Yeah, I just wanted to chime in and on behalf of some of my colleagues, and I'm sure everyone else here on the call, say thank you for the question and answer format of this as opposed to a comment only format. Really appreciate you guys. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Okay, let's try Patricia one more time. Can you hear us? Okay. I will go, I'm going to go to Pierre, then Woody. Go ahead, Pierre.
Hi, my question is to Doug Ito, and it's not specifically tied to the SB 1137, but it's regarding the presentation, it's part of the presentation that he made. Is that an allowable question?
We are actually, didn't want to interrupt you, but we are actually keeping things to 11:37 tonight. But if there's
Okay.
something you want to follow up on, you could totally send an email.
Okay, it's just because it was in the presentation, so I figured it was fair game to ask, It's okay.
Well, we overall are glad you're here and appreciate you asking. All right, let me go to Woody. There you go.
Hi, thank you all for taking the time, and also really appreciated the question answer format and just having folks from across DOC and CARB available to cover all the different questions. So I know that takes a lot to do and appreciate the time that goes into it. I just want to confirm my understanding of your answer to Cesar's first question at the top of this on the residence definition. So, I understand that a shed or some other sort of, temporary structure or structure that wasn't built for human habitation wouldn't be covered by the residence definition. But if we're looking at a permanent, inhabited, rigid walled structure, just to confirm, the zoning it lies within doesn't matter, correct? So that structure would be considered a residence regardless of the zoning it lies within. Is that right?
Ben?
Sure. So I think we'd want to look at a specific example, but we're can't do anything that is that conflicts with the statute, and the statute says living quarter as one of the examples it puts into the definition of residence. So if there's I think we'd want to look on a case by case basis if it was questionable. Does that help, Woody, or do you want to follow up? Or do you need me to further elaborate?
Yeah, I would just add, whenever we get these type of dispute, we have a team of engineers within CalGEM who review those documents with the operator submission, and also we do our own investigation, and we also send our inspector to check the locations and make our recommendation.
Okay, thanks. I think that addresses it. I just noticed that Michelle and Tyler have a couple questions in the Q&A. I don't know if they've raised hands, but if we have time to address those as well. Thanks.
Okay, Patricia, I'm going to try one last time before we end our meeting to get to you. Let's try Patricia one more time. And then Taylor, I'm coming to you. Well, darn it. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties. Taylor, you are up. We need to unmute Taylor. There we go. Taylor, you're unmuted. We do not hear Taylor. Okay. Well, we're giving Taylor a last moment. Last chance. Anyone have any last comment? We're so grateful you all were here tonight. I'm sure everyone wants to get to dinner.
I just want to point out that Tyler asked if you were calling for Taylor, right? Not
Taylor
Tyler.
Khan.
Yeah.
Taylor Khan.
Okay.
Tyler, if you wanted to do one more, use the raise your hand. Okay, so let's go to Chad. We'll try Taylor one more time, and then we'll see if we're wrapping up. Chad. Chad's unmuted. Go for it.
That's it. Ben,
Yep.
I just wanted to make sure it's okay if I can reach out to you also. I heard on the side regarding some of these questions.
Sure, no
Of
problem.
course. Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, Sarah can give you my email address and my cell phone number if you reach out to her.
Yeah, I will find it through the channels and I'll shoot you an email. Thank you again.
Cool.
And thanks for everyone for missing dinner or whatever and getting dressed up and putting this on. I appreciate you.
That's very kind. Thank you. All right, we're trying one last time with Taylor. Hate to miss you. All right, Mary, one more time to you.
Just quickly summarize next steps and when the action points are. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from our team want to summarize? It is a perfect way to close out our meeting.
I will just quickly say that for CalGEM, we'll wait for the final comments. The deadline is March 30th, and then we'll review all the comments and any changes we wanted to do, we'll do it, and we'll do a final rulemaking.
And I'll just add in that our plan is to take all the comments and questions that came in tonight. We're all working on creating FAQ documents. So the Department of Conservation's working on one, CARB's working on one, the folks at the water boards are working on one, and we've all set a goal to get that out within a month or sooner. We didn't know how many questions or how technical they would be, so we set that deadline. Oh, Erica. Okay. Well, let me just take this one more hand. Erica, I'm so glad you're here. Hi. Oh, we need to unmute her.
Hi,
Okay.
everybody. I just wanted to say, I think Taylor said, please try me again. I'm just reading the chat right now.
Oh,
And again,
thanks.
appreciate this question and answer format. This is wonderful.
Aw, thanks, Erica. It's always good to hear your voice. Taylor, let's try you again.
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for this format. I really appreciate the ability to make comment. My question is regarding existing idle wells in the health protection zone. Will SB 1137 have any restrictions on reactivating idle wells in the zone?
You want me to take that or?
Sure.
Yep.
So if CalGEM would be restricted from issuing a permit that would so if an operator needed a permit that wouldn't necessarily prevent a hazard to health and safety, then they wouldn't be able to get a permit. If the well was fine and didn't need to get a permit to restart, like if it had mechanical integrity and didn't need to get a permit to restart, then they could restart. But if they needed to repair their well or fix their well or drill it deeper or drill off into a different formation, they wouldn't be able to do it unless it was necessary to prevent an impact to health, threat to health and safety.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're really running on time. Thank you again, everyone, for hanging with us almost 2 hours. We're very grateful. We've got the links in the chat, and we have mentioned that we're taking comment on this draft until March 31st. Then we'll be moving into the more formal rulemaking process. So of course you'll have time to comment during that process too. Thank you so much to our colleagues from the water boards, our colleagues from the Air Resources Board, and my colleagues within the Department of Conservation. Have a great night. Thank you.